Howdy, and welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, brought to you by the legendary White Stallion Ranch in the shadow of the Tucson Mountains, along with Basecamp for veterans. In the West, Cowboy Up is more than a saying. It's a way of life defined by grit, hard work, and self-reliance. And that courage is the heart of the mission of Basecamp for veterans. This podcast is dedicated to honoring the Cowboy Up spirit. We are the only show bringing you true Western adventure and history while showcasing the profound healing that happens when our nation's heroes connect with the power of horses. Join Russell True, Deborah Plum, Thea Windish, and yours truly, Stephen Clauson, as we share tales from the range and powerful stories of resilience, all working towards one goal while helping everyone to cowboy up for the next chapter of their life. Good morning, Russell.
Morning.
I'm excited. I kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed today. Sometimes you get to interview one individual of extreme note, which is you, because I feel like I'm always sitting at the foot of the master. Well, I'm sorry. It's the truth. And now I've got a gentleman by the name of Jaye Wells in the house, and this kind of reminds me of when I would tell something to my father, and he would say, "Son, I have forgotten more about that than you know." And we're here today to talk about the book, 100 Years of Dude Ranching. We're going to touch on the Call of the West. And Jay, I want to start by welcoming you to the Cowboy Up Podcast. I've been remiss in not having you on before this. Welcome. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. Thank you, Stephen and Russell. It's fun to be with you. I follow the podcast often, and so congratulations to y'all's good work.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. I'm just excited to talk about what's gone on. I would like you to start by giving us a little bit of a background on who you are, what brings you to the table, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm fond of using the pun that Russell roped me into the dude ranching business, but he and I met on a school board that our kids were going to, an old private school in Arizona, and we were like-minded, both ethically, morally, business-like, financially, politically. And so we I did some architectural work for him and White Stallion. And we went down to see the Tombstone Monument Ranch in 2014 and joined forces then, and have been growing the business ever since.
Fantastic. So you've got, about a 12-year track record in dude ranching?
Yeah.
If not longer?
Yeah. This 12 years. That's actually it'll be 13 coming in August. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a long time, and to find somebody that you're aligned with on all those different areas is quite remarkable.
It's very rare, and we have a term that we say if we're trying to vet someone, we go, "Is he one of us?" And it doesn't mean that they're kindred spirit. They approach life and the same kind of eyes that we do, and so far that's worked well for the both of us.
Well, it's worked well for the both of you. It's worked, from what I can tell, it's worked quite well for True Ranch Collection, White Stallion, and especially dude ranching in general.
Yeah, I think it's a shot in the arm. We're you can say that we're really not doing anything new in the industry. We're sort of just applying boutique hotel systems into running multiple dude ranches, which I think we're the one and only group that has more than one of them. Maybe the rest of them are smarter than we are, but it's worked really well, and we're not really a destructive force in the industry. We're trying to sort of be, by example, leaders, so that because dude ranching is going to have to change, as all industries do, as they go in the future. But we're not here to talk about the future. We're here to talk about the past.
Well, and I'm going to talk about that real quick here. You just talked about that you've got multiple dude ranches, and maybe the rest of them are smarter than you. I don't know about that, because when I look at what the Eatons did, there were all kinds of different people that started these dude ranch / guest ranches, and they all offered something a little bit different, which is what True Ranch does, right?
Well, that's true, and but the real testimony is that is the power of the draw of the West. It took people that were retiring and they just wanted to change their life, young, aggressive, wealthy business people from the Northeast that came out in the early days. And I bet you if you took every kind of key figure in dude ranching and made a list, you'd have pretty much a giant pot of what business people are in the United States. And it's because we're risk takers. That's their key to America.
Well, there's a couple on the video of The Call of the West, which is one of my favorite videos. It's always on my computer. They cashed in their 401ks and everything else. They paid huge penalties, and they said all those penalties are out there in the Colorado River. They did exactly that.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a draw. It really is. It's something, I didn't come into it naturally, as I said, but I have quickly kind of understood that the power that people have experiencing the West for the first time, and not necessarily the West, but just rural living, rural experiences. That's quite a draw, and it's harder and harder to achieve these days. I'm fond of talking about we've got a ranch on the border, Rancho de la Osa, that has 37 fireplaces, and we have to teach people how to build a fire in a fireplace. I mean, it's one thing rubbing two sticks together, but when you have to tell them to make sure you put the fire starter on below the logs.
Yeah, that's probably an important little piece of information for a lot of these folks.
But, Stephen, if we circle back to the couple you were talking about, which is Jerry and Sherry Helmecki, and they both actually been presidents of Dude Ranchers Association. I was in the meeting on the board when Jerry came to apply to be the ranch had been around in Colorado. It's Colorado's oldest. It's Bar Lazy J. And I had looked at it when it was for sale, and it was an old ranch. It was showing its age and a lot of deferred maintenance. I mentioned this in the Call of the West, and I looked at it twice, actually. I had dreamed to own a Colorado ranch, and then it didn't work out for us. And then they bought it, and I saw it shortly after they bought it. It was immediately improved. Life was back in it. And then I went back after they'd been there 10 or more years, and it was transformed. And there was art and artistry everywhere. And I talked about that because when you see that, a place has made it. It took us a lot longer at White Stallion to get to that point, but they were, in the most positive way of the word, of using the words, they were dudes who bought a dude ranch. They were not from the West. He was a corporate guy. She was a teacher. She was teacher of the year. She was an All-American basketball player. They had really interesting backgrounds that had no relationship whatsoever to dude ranching. And they made it a success. And I'm so glad that they were in there because you've got the Eatons, who are 5 generations, have to be there. And then you've got equally great dude ranchers who came into it like my parents with no background, no real good reason to even do it, except they wanted to.
You stole my line because I was going to make that analogy because your parents, they weren't out of the dude ranching industry. That really wasn't their gig. They were out of the oil industry, and they made it work.
Right. I mean, my dad, my dad was a wrangler in Glacier National Park when he was 12, which literally meant he would go rope the horses, because you didn't catch horses back then. You roped them. And you bring them up, saddle them, hand the horse to the person who was paying $2 or whatever it was to ride the horse, and off the rider went. So really his job was catching and saddling and unsaddling horses. He was a maid in Glacier Park the next year, so the joke was the wrangling mustn't have worked that well. But that was his experience. And other than consuming hospitality, as most of us do, zero background, zero.
So Jay, when everybody decided we're going to do this book, 100 Years of Dude Ranching, and we're going to create a coffee table book out of it, what the hell were you thinking?
Well, I mean, it just seemed like it started. We made the contract to buy Blackwater Creek up outside of Cody, Wyoming, and the Yellowstone. And so we had a bunch of investors fly up to see the place for the first time. And so Colleen Hudson, who was the then executive director of the Dude Ranch Foundation, hosted a little party in the museum there in Cody. And so she said, well, we're trying to come up with ideas to celebrate the 100th anniversary. And me being a preservation architect and always interested in those kind of angles, I said, well, how many ranches are around that were there, originally? I thought there might be 6 or 7. And no one knew, and so that was interesting. I thought, well, this would be kind of a fun thing to kind of do. At least it'd be articles or something. And then when we started researching, it turns out there were 26 out of some 91, 92
91 at the
members.
time.
And I dare you to find a trade industry, or especially in the hospitality, that percentage of the properties are still in business 100 years later. That single fact is a testimony to the power of dude ranching and being hospitable in the West.
Well, I think it comes down to, from my point of view, the fact that it is such a destination vacation.
Yes, exactly. That was the first. I mean, that kind of got coined during the course of doing the book. But, it was just my idea, and a good idea is nothing. It takes people to execute it, and building the team was serendipitous, that everybody had time to do it at the time. But we got not only just pure experts, but some folks that we brought together to handle, different aspects of the book had never done a publication. And so this is truly one of those things where the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and it shows in the book. It's a fabulous piece of work, and I don't take credit for anything besides getting the right people to come in and keeping them going down the path. But the hat's off to everybody involved with it.
Well, you had a lot of people that you had to keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not a simple task.
Yeah, and talk about who they are.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea was, what's this book going to be like? And so, we knew we had it's going to have to be a history book. But since it's an anniversary book, we wanted to bring it up to current speed. And that meant new photography. And again, serendipitously, I happened to make friends with a guy named Scott Baxter, who is a well-known Western photographer. And he was hired by the Jan Brewer, the governor at the time of our centennial, to do a project called 100 Years, 100 Ranches. And for the centennial, they did a huge traveling exhibition that featured 100 photos at 100 different ranches that were all 100 years old. So I thought, well, this is a brilliant idea. Let's do something like that. So when at the time I met Scott, we were doing a ranch down in Tubac, and we needed artwork quickly because it was a short-term lease. And so I thought, I really was impressed by that exhibit. So I called him up and asked him if he would lease us, his photos from that exhibit for it. So he and I became friends. So Scott was actually the very first choice was the Scott Baxter to have his work within the book. But then we needed the history part too, and Lynn Downey, who is a good friend of Russell's, and so we engaged her to actually write the history of dude ranching for the first 100 years. And she had done some books on dude ranching, so she had that. She just didn't have it in a way that it was spun to tell an anniversary story, centennial anniversary story. Again, serendipitously, Scott's new wife, was actually the creative director for Arizona Highways. And so laying the book out took that kind of not just vision, but expertise. So we brought her in. But then, we had a bunch of people to lean on that. Russell, of course, is well known within the industry. He's, as far as I know, the leading historian as far as the different ranches in Arizona and all of that. So he had connections to get everybody to participate. Colleen Hudson, who, as I said, had hosted us, she had the contacts. She knows everybody in the industry. But the real glue that kind of brought all of these people together was a young lady named Bridget Brussels. And Bridget went to work for us in 2014 when we started the Rito racetrack. Russell, I twisted his arm to come in and help me with that. I'll help you with your dude ranches if you'll help me with the racetrack. But anyway, she went to work for me as a junior in college. And she and her twin sister, Brooke, are the key elements. And she came in and was that person that literally made sure we were all on pace. She gathered the history, the historic photos, made contacts with all of the ranches. And I say in the acknowledgement, without her effort, the book would have never gone to print. But it did take a team effort, and I'm really proud of what they turned out. It's
well,
go ahead. Bridget's job was the hardest because Scott's just doing what he knows how, right? He traveled, God knows, 20,000 miles.
Yeah.
And Barbara just doing what she knows how. But Bridget had to corral, using puns, and ride the trail chasing down ranchers. We're notoriously bad at responding to things like this because we're worried because the Wrangler ran off with the waitress, and now we gotta, and we gotta wake up and there's a sick. We're terrible. Collectively, we're terrible. And so she had to hound these people and, we're going to go and we're going to film. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. And then Scott had to evacuate from a forest fire, and literally with the fire coming over the ridge. So this was, and Bridget's having to move all these chess pieces. That was the hardest job.
Her
to make
tenacity
that book.
was amazing to watch, because it didn't make any difference whether they were hard to get a hold of or rude. She stayed after them, and she really was the force behind getting the book
So when
together.
Jay says it wouldn't happen, everybody else could just do what they were professionals at doing. Bridget had to keep pulling on the chains.
Also, too, I think that as the book developed, and, we kind of first did just sort of a mock-up so that everybody that could get an idea of what it was going to end up being. And because it kept getting better and better, everybody stepped up their game, including the ranches involved. And so those that were really reluctant to participate, like, what's this about? Why should I do this? They then got enthusiastic about it, and we were just really thrilled with the outcome.
Well, this is something I know. I have a huge level of respect for the two of you. And the two of you have something called the Ranch Preservation Foundation. And I know that Bridget and Brooke are both part of it.
Right.
Well, I think you probably have figured out that there's people that you can align with, and they're going to get things done. And the fact that you've got them around speaks volumes.
Talent, you have to be able to spot it. And to have them involved with us is just a blessing. I told their mother one time, I said, a lot of ways we're the luckiest guys in the world to have your daughters work for us. And she goes, damn right you are.
Well, and you're two people that people want to do things for.
I hope that's
because you both have a great vision. So with that said, we're going to stop for about 2 minutes for a couple of commercial messages. We're going to come right back with Jay and Russell. Thank you.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. Recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
They never told us that the hardest part of the mission wasn't the field. It was the silence that followed when we returned home. Basecamp for Veterans knew transition wasn't a solo march. Basecamp knew it would take a community that spoke the language of service, along with relearning how to connect. Basecamp provides the grit, the gear, the direction, and the brotherhood to help warriors find their new North Star. But they can't hold the line alone. Your financial support provides more than just resources. Your support provides a way back. We're asking you to cowboy up for those who gave everything. Visit bcampinc.com today. Stand with veterans so no veteran has to stand alone. That's bcampinc.com.
And we are back with Jay and Russell. Jay, during the break, we were talking about a traveling exhibition that has the book, The Call of the West, as one of 3 finalists. Yeah. I'd love it if you'd talk about that.
Well, so the book itself just recently won a Will Rogers medallion, and it's a literary thing. And we're one of 3 finalists in the photo book category. And in October, they'll then decide which of the 3 is first, second, and third. But for our first publication to get that kind of prestigious award is pretty significant. I was kind of shocked that we got it, but we did. But again, it's just the quality of it as it came together really was magnificent. And being a photo book, the photos, we went to extra effort to get the images. We had Arizona Lithographers, which is one of the top printers in the country, produced the book. So we didn't take shortcuts because this wasn't really anything that we were trying to make money at. We hoped to end up with enough money to give the Dude Ranch Foundation some additional grant money. But the whole idea was to celebrate Dude Ranching at its 100th year anniversary. However, Scott's photographs are absolutely the way that you see them when they're printed to scale is just phenomenal. And so we thought, gosh, we're kind of limited to this small format of a coffee table book, but the real image is head and shoulders above what's in the book. And so we put together a traveling exhibition called The Wrangle. It debuted at the convention in Billings, 100 convention in Billings in last January.
For the Dude Ranchers
For the Dude Ranchers Association. And then it moved to Tubac, Arizona at the Tubac Resort. Then traveled up to Cody, Wyoming to the Dude Ranchers Museum. So it's up there for the summer. And then we are going to bring it back down to Scottsdale. We're looking for another place to stop in Colorado because we've been in Montana, we've been in Wyoming, we've been in Arizona, we haven't been in Colorado, and of course those are the 4 states that are represented by the 26 ranches featured in the book. Mm-hmm. But the exhibition is just, it's beautiful, and just the vistas, the scene, it ranges from landscapes that look like Thomas Moran painted them, the famous Western painter from back in the 1800s, to just perfect portraits, just capture in almost a Richard Avedon-esque kind of style. The character of these wranglers, owners, cowgirls, it's phenomenal. It really is. So that's been a big treat to have that up and traveling as well. So.
Well, you didn't minimize anything that you did. You did it right every step of the way.
We tried our best, and I think we came close to doing about as good as we could do.
Well, the topic that you have is like you said, it started off difficult and became a little easier. I don't think it was ever really easy. Like Russell said, dude ranches are notoriously difficult to get a hold of because they're running ranches.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
I mean, this is not entry level. And I have a glimpse of what he does. I don't even attempt to walk with him anymore because I can't do it.
We were down in south of Patagonia yesterday, and between Sonoya and Patagonia, and we went. Wow, we're way back, 2 miles off the road, up on a little hill.
Sure.
And my phone rang, and it was someone doing some work for us in Cody, Wyoming. And the people that were with us go like, "How did you get that call way back here?" And I said, "Oh, my phone does that." And he says, "Does it ever stop?" I said, "No, it's 24/7, 365. It really is."
Well, it is with Russell as well.
Yeah, no, as I'm saying, our business is that way.
So many of the people in this book are really just generational ranchers, much like I think you would categorize yourself as a generational rancher, wouldn't you?
Oh, I'm second generation.
Yeah,
I mean, if I didn't say that, then I'd be forgetting our parents who gave us this great opportunity.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, 3 of the ranches are ours in the book.
Yep.
And a couple of others are ranches that, have talked to us about somehow. So it's Rancho Del Osa, for instance, it was closed for almost 3 years. And we, when they're closed for even a year, it's almost a startup. Circle Bar, which isn't in the book, but also very historic, it was closed 13 years. So, wow. We're not saving Dude Ranching. It doesn't need saved and doesn't need us. But some Dude Ranches do need us.
I'm sure.
And we looked at a ranch recently that was my dad's favorite Dude Ranch. He really wanted to buy it here in Arizona, and it hadn't taken guests since 1965. So it's
wow.
It's still there, but it's not had guests for 61 years
61
now.
years.
We opened OTO. It hadn't had guests for 83 years, and it's owned by the Forest Service. So, you can see the book is through our foundation, Dude Ranch Preservation, or Ranch Preservation Foundation. But it's the whole model of our business. It's what we do. But I'll say one thing. This was really Jay's project. He had a vision for this even before we were at the foundation, Dude Ranch Foundation in Cody. without going into the details, which isn't the point, this book so impressed some pros in the industry of publishing that, and they have a legacy company. They came to us and said, "You guys have the team assembled. You've got the wherewithal with the right people. You should be the next people to operate this business." What a tribute to the group that came together to put that book out.
Well, I think too that, going back to, how the passion that dude ranchers have for their business, and they literally, we don't feel like we're owners. We feel like we're stewards, and I don't mean that in any kind of, trite or trivial way. These ranches are going to be around long after we're gone, and we're hoping that legacy that we inherited when we purchased the ranches is passed on to the next owners, because these are uniquely American. And I think that's the one thing, the cowboy is always, I think, internationally recognized as the American icon, and probably one of the strongest icons in international media. But the Dude Ranch is something that to go out and actually experience, to get on a horse with someone who knows what they're doing, knows how to teach you, knows how to keep you safe. That is a rare opportunity for folks to experience. And it changes their lives. I mean, I didn't come from it, but I will say once I got involved with it, there was a moment where I went like, wait a minute, this is good what we're doing. This is this is a win-win-win,
Well, Russell and I talk all the time about the concept of the experience, and you see a 10 or 11-year-old child, they show up at the ranch, and all they're interested in is their cell phone.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 days later, they know where their cell phone is. It's in the room. They're not worried about it because they've made new friends. They're eating in a communal style dining area. And the parents, by day 4, they're going, well, could you guys show up here back around noon, around lunchtime? I'd like to see you. They just want to be sure they're okay. And that's one of the things I think Russell loves is the fact that these people have known him, some of them for 30 plus years. They know him and they look forward to seeing him. And that's something that is just, it's unique. Nobody at Disney feels that way about me when I go to Disney World. They couldn't care less whether I'm there or not.
Well, they care, as long as your money's there.
As long as my money's good.
And that's okay. That's what they're doing, But, Deborah, who's our GM now, started coming at 2.5 years old. And she talks often about, and I've heard this story many, many times, she grew up in Manhattan. Even 38 years ago, when she was 2.5 years old, they weren't going to turn her loose in Manhattan. She had a little more freedom if you actually talked to her. But the first experience of independence that she and her brother had, and this is told over and over from these kids in urban settings, is that sense of independence. And their parents, just once they're there, I'm talking now generically, they get it. The kids can kind of run in packs and have some healthy freedom.
That sort of release that people get when they visit a dude ranch is really kind of summed up in a couple of anecdotes I'll share with you. One was we were up looking at a ranch outside of Glacier National Park, and he was 88 and she was 84. And they had a beautiful ranch, a little bit out of the way, didn't have a whole lot of guest accommodation, so they maybe took 20 to 25 people. And but they were insisting that this big ranch be kept as a dude ranch. They were not going to sell it to anybody that wanted a private ranch. And I asked her why, and she says, I've been doing this since 1956, and people need it now more than ever. And she was literally speaking from her heart. Tell you another quick story about the impact that it has on guests is when we just opened up Rancho de la Osa, so this was 2017, and so I'd been down at the ranch and had lunch, and a young lady that was actually, she wasn't young, she was in her 70s, but she was a teaching professor over in California and dealing with rape trauma and childhood abuse. And her staff said, you are so wound up, you've got to go to a dude ranch. So great. So I happened to be down there 5 days later, and she wanted to get to the airport. And I said, well, just give me 20 minutes, and I'll take you. And so I said, how'd you enjoy it? She goes, more than I ever imagined. I was like, wow, that's great. I said, well, why did you pick this ranch? She goes, because of the history. And she said, but I got there, And they told me that, they're going to ring the bell for breakfast. And I said, well, what if I'm in the shower and I didn't hear the bell ring? Will I still feed me breakfast, And then after that, you've got to go down to the corrals and get ready to saddle up on a horse. Well, what if I need to go to the restroom? Will they wait on me or will they leave me behind? And she said her second morning, she was drinking tea in front of her casita. And she had the worst anxiety attack she'd ever experienced. And she diagnosed herself as her not recognizing her body relax, that her body didn't recognize her. Yeah. And that really was a life-changing anecdote for me, because it thought, well, wait a minute. Everybody needs to decompress now more than ever. And I do believe that's part of what dude ranching does.
Do you disagree with that in any way, Russell?
No. It's, I say this not to make a point or any other. I'm surprised we're not all full all the time. And I mean, all good dude ranches. And most dude ranches, quite honestly, they're doing a great job. And because we do offer authentic, real experiences, and almost always in beautiful country. I mean, one of the biggest risks to dude ranching is most of them are in these beautiful places. And this concentration of wealth that we're experiencing, people can go in and buy their piece of the beautiful part of wherever it is, and take it private. And we're, one of our main goals is to keep these places available and open to people to come and a week a year, or some people come more than once, and get that decompression. But you can decompress on a beach too. But it's just, there's so much more. It's connecting with other guests, staff, beautiful country, real experiences. You get on a horse, you've assumed a certain level of risk. Dude ranches are brilliant at mitigating it, but there's still risk to everybody on a horse. Well, at the end of the day, that has value. You were a cowboy or a cowgirl for an hour or 6 hours or 8 hours, and you came home and you made it. And it's not a ride at an amusement park. And you go out and fly fish and catch real fish and do all these amazing things, or you sit on the porch and watch other people do it. It's all good.
I tell you, one of the things that is surprising is that I can't tell you, especially as probably high-powered business people, and they said, I look forward to coming here and playing with my grandkids and letting everybody or watch the whole family interact. And he goes, what I enjoyed more than anything, just doing nothing. And that's hard to find the time to do that.
It is hard to find that time. I know my granddaughter is going to be 3 very shortly, and I personally cannot wait to bring her out here when she's 8 and she can go out on a ride. And I realize she can ride sooner than that, but I watch Reagan and I watch how happy she is when she's on a horse. And she's 8, a little over 8 years old, right?
Right.
And she's got the confidence of someone who's 40.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what she can do on that horse.
It's also the ignorance of youth.
But I want that for my granddaughter. I want that for my kids. I want them to see what life is. They love Disney, and I think that's fantastic. But this is just something dude ranching is something that's so different. And there's the fact that there's so many to choose from that have the legacy that you point out in this book.
Yeah, well, I think I hope that part helps. It at least captured and celebrated, the fact that this industry and tradition has been around longer than 100 years, just the association. But it goes back to the late 1800s. So it's a pretty amazing industry. There's no doubt about that.
It is. Can I get you gentlemen to talk about the Preservation Foundation, what it is you do, how it is you do it?
Well, we first started it because the Forest Service out of Custer Gallatin National Forest in Montana had contacted Russell regarding having us come up and look at a ranch called the OTO, which was the first dude ranch in Montana, and also is on a national register. And it's up where you can't drive to it. The public can't drive to it. And beautiful place. And so COVID kind of got in the way, correct? And so after in 21, we went up and visited, And here in the middle of this wilderness is this just incredible structure architecturally, and with all this history. It had not had guests since 1939, and so the then director of the Custer Gallatin Forest said, "What do you guys do?" She go, "Well, we don't know, but we're in." And it turns out that this was like one of Thomas Molesworth's first commissions, and he was a very famed Western designer for furniture, and he kind of created the whole sofa that has the cow horn arms and fringe around the bottom, like the old dusters that the guys used to wear. But anyway, so we got involved with that, and but we knew it had to be done as a nonprofit. And so we formed the Dude Ranch Foundation to do that. Since then, we've addressed there's a 1722 building on Rancho de la Osa that was built by the Jesuits not too long after Father Kino passed away. And so we restored that to get it on the National Register. And then the book was just a natural evolution of what we're trying to do. It's not just what you're doing and restoring, it's bringing the awareness. That's just as and equally as important, because you could go in and create something in the middle of the wilderness that nobody's going to go to see unless they can hear about it or see it. So that's kind of how it got going.
Okay. Now, I also want to touch briefly on The Call of the West. The Call of the West is about a little more than an hour long film done by PBS out of Wyoming. I know Russell was in it a lot because he's
a warning.
One of the
Stephen
primary
is
historians in dude ranching. How does that interact with the book, or does it?
Well, it's a compliment to the book. I mean, it really, as I said, or the proverbial saying is, "A picture's worth 1,000 words." When you see horses running, the exponential impact on you, as opposed to just a still photograph. You had to have seen horses running to capture that same feeling within the book. So film is a great way to do it. Of course, it was a little different because it kind of just touched on the character. But Russell was really more involved with it, so I think you could tell more about that than me.
Well, I mean, what do you want to know?
Well, you were interviewed, and because the depth of what you have regarding history of dude ranching is remarkable, and I'm pretty certain that's why you spent as much time in front of the camera as you did in this particular video. You know so much.
Well, I mean, that's.
And you're an incredible storyteller.
They filmed a bunch of us, and the editor's choice. So I've done the book on dude ranching in Arizona, dude ranching in Wyoming, Arcadia Publishing. They're very formulaic. It's all historic photos. It was sort of, Jay said, dude ranching deserves more than that, and this is the result, this beautiful mix of history and today. But I do, because I love the history and because I've done some of the research, and if it's a book about dude ranching, I've read it. But the film, the Dude Ranchers Association wanted a film to commemorate their 100th anniversary. It's the oldest ag-based trade organization, I just read, in the West. 100 years is a pretty big deal. And they handed that to the Dude Ranch Foundation, which is the 501c3 associated group to the Dude Ranchers Association trade group. And so we were, entrusted with that huge job. And then our executive director, Josie Hederman, had a connection to Wyoming PBS, and they were willing to take it on. And I mean, it's an expensive project.
Yeah.
And Alpheus Media, who did it, they're multiple Emmy award-winning group, and it's a cinematic. It's artfully cinematic. It's not a sterile documentary. They hit it out of the park. They made it more beautiful than I ever could have hoped. I always want more history, but to the broad appeal, it's just hit the mark, and really represented dude ranching then and today in a really entertaining way. I can't imagine anybody not enjoying that film.
I agree with you.
And it's available on YouTube. You don't pay. You go and watch it, and an hour of your time, and you see something real. And I hope people take away, one of the things that matters to me, because I'm a dude rancher, is that dude ranching had an unexpected role in shaping the West. Because in that very critical late early 1900s period when the West was really, as we're talking about, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, et cetera, was really taking shape post-Civil War, et cetera. These dude ranchers, I mean, they brought out all the names: Roosevelts, Rockefellers, Carnegies, name it. Name a family at that period of time that was prominent and wealthy, and they came and visited a dude ranch, whether it was Colorado, Arizona, it doesn't matter. And some of them stayed. And you think about what the Rockefellers did in the Jackson area, and these folks, all the big dude ranches were either Easterners like Larry Laram, or they were Westerners who brought the East. They needed that connection. But a lot of them were people like Larry Laram who just appreciated the individualist perspective, the self-reliance, the risk-taking, and just the culture of the West. And they shared it with their Eastern friends. And dude ranching really had a huge role in the West as we know it today.
And
We'll never know that.
Yeah, one of the driving forces to actually get the association started was really the railroads. And, the railroads at that time were running the Santa Fe down south through the Grand Canyon and Flagstaff and all of that area. And then you had them go up north through Montana and across the country. So for the first time, people, they wanted to stop and see these places they saw outside the train window. So they started, and I'll tell you a funny anecdote. If you look at the old pictures of the OTO from like the 1918, and they've got Navajo rugs all over the place. Well, there are no Navajo in Montana. And so we actually, when we bought the Blackwater Creek, we brought up Navajo rugs because that was sort of the stamp on dude ranching were these Navajo rugs. Well, the people we bought it from were incensed. They go, there are no Navajo around here. That's not the point. The railroad would pick them up as they went through northern Arizona and sell them as they went through Montana. And so that sort of, spreading of the indigenous tribes, artworks, et cetera, wasn't no longer contained. You had to go to the reservation to experience it. And that's kind of a neat idea that the railroad saw the impact of travel. And as you said, the destination travel was started that way.
All it did was change a world.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming and spending some time with us, Jay.
Enjoyed it.
Very informative. Having you and Russell in the same room to talk about the same thing is really a treat. Do you have anything finally you wish to share?
No, you guys keep doing what you're doing. I think this whole the legacy of dude ranching and ranching in general in the West is super important. It's not slipping away because it's just the next movie before it comes back to the forefront. The next Yellowstone.
Yeah, no kidding.
TV
How
show.
do people get the book?
Well, you can go to ranchpreservationfoundation.com and .org, and we do sell the book there. Proceeds of it go to the Dude Ranch Foundation and their charitable work on both scholarships for young wranglers to go to college and safety training, fire training, mitigation. So they do worthwhile things, and the whole point of the Ranch Preservation Foundation is to promote the industry from a historic standpoint. So they can get the book there and in bookshops all over.
Okay, is it available on Amazon?
Not yet, but we will. That's
okay.
We were advised that first get out to your crowd, etc. We only printed 3,000, and I think we're down to like the last 1,000. But I think we'll go to Amazon if there's inventory. It looks like it's going to linger.
Nice, and I know it's available in the White Stallion bookstore.
Right. It is ranchpreservationfoundation.org.
And I will include that on this podcast.
Thank you.
Jay, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
So I appreciate you watching today. The legacy and history of dude ranching is remarkable, and it leaves a mark on who we are as a nation. I would encourage you to visit ranchpreservationfoundation.org to learn more. Also, visit on Wyoming PBS on YouTube. You can find Call of the West, a remarkable film. My name is Steve Clauson, and on behalf of the Cowboy Up and Basecamp for Veterans podcast, I genuinely appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy.